Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bashtalk Podcast. Today I've got a special guest all the way from Burnley, none other than Mr. Wajid Khan himself. Firstly, I just want to say thank you for coming. It's really appreciated. It was on short notice as well. And thank you for Mr. Shakoor for arranging it. And as far as I know, it was a short conversation. You didn't ask a lot of questions and we just straight onto it and you were happy to come. So with that in mind, can I ask you just to give us a quick brief introduction about yourself, just for the benefit of our viewers?
Well, first of all, Bash, thank you very much for having me on Bashtalk and for allowing me to visit your fantastic little cool studio here. Very impressive. And you said Brother Shakoor, and he was with me and his organisers. Whenever he says something, I always got to do it. That's how much respect and love I have for him. And it's great to see and talk to you and realise our mutual connections we have as well.
Yeah. So in terms of you as a person that's involved in politics, what is your current role?
Currently, I'm a Lord in the House of Lords, so my official title is Lord Khan of Burnley. So I'm the upper chamber of Parliament. I attend and serve there as a member of the opposition.
Okay, and I have to ask this question. I mean, if it was a female guest, it's a different situation, but I have to ask, how old are you?
I am 41.
You had to think about that one, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Okay, and how long have you been involved in politics?
Oh, that's a good question. It seems forever from my point of view. I got in very young. So I'll give you a bit of background. I first stood for as in elections when I was going for the student councillor over at my local college in Habigam Sixth Form Centre. I stood and won that. That was a big achievement for me, and I was representing students on the governing body at the Sixth Form Centre. Furthermore, I went to university, did all that, graduated in law, went to the barrister course in London, didn't like London, so came back. I did my master's LLM in European law, and then from there I got involved in projects. And my first election as in council election was 2007, and the reason why was because there were BNP councillors in Burnley that really wound me up, Bash, and I wanted to come into politics to clean up the town and not to ensure we don't have BNP kind of representing me in Burnley. So subsequently from there, won a good few elections. 2015 won unopposed as a councillor, become an MEP in 2017, member of European Parliament.
Wow.
Served there till when Brexit happened, we came out, and then in 2020 got the phone call that Her Majesty the Queen and the advisor of the Prime Minister appointed me to the House of Lords. So since December I've been in the House of Lords as a Lord, and then in between that I forgot to mention I was also the Mayor of Burnley for 2020-21 during COVID. I was a lockdown mayor.
Wow. I've got to say that's like, because you went from a councillor to an MEP, it was quite a jump. How did you find that?
It was a huge jump, Bash, because the local politics has a different dynamics. But when you're in one of the biggest parliaments in the world, the European Parliament, with at the time 28 countries, you kind of have to adjust yourself and up your game and quickly learn the different ways and mechanisms of making an impact for your communities here. So I represented the northwest of England, and that constituted big cities like Manchester, Liverpool, the whole of Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Lancashire, Cheshire, and all the way up to Cumbria. 76 parliamentary constituencies, something like 7 million people. So it was a pretty challenging, lifestyle, because you live away in Brussels and Strasbourg, then come back at the weekends, and then you travel along these constituencies, attending events and meetings.
So that's quite a jump coming from a place like Burnley, small town. You used to kind of the local town kind of politics, and then within a year, you're off to Strasbourg.
Yeah. But Bash, Burnley politics is a good education. It prepares you well.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not too far from Nelson politics in terms of it can be quite dynamic, if you put it that way.
I'd say it's very direct. It's very much switched on people. They've got the social media element to politics, and people are very emotional. And you could argue, well, do we have to be that emotional in politics where we get really sometimes too personal? But we've got to, hopefully progress and change that culture to understand that we have to have our differences, expect them, but we do it in a respectful manner.
Yeah. So if I can wind it back a little bit and turn back the clock to your earlier career. Now, because one of the things that I like to do is, obviously you're in a position where you are quite successful, mashallah, but I also want to provide the inspiration element for the people that are listening, because you weren't always in a position where you were like, say, like in the House of Lords, for example, you had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I believe at one point you've done a bit of teaching work or teaching system work?
Yeah. Well, first of all success, thanks Allah Ta'ala, thank you Allah Ta'ala for wherever He's got me in life, and of course all the du'as of our brothers and sisters, our elders. This is always important to get good guidance and good mentoring, and I've been lucky and been blessed to be where I am, and it's a great honour and privilege to be where I am. Second point is I started off very humble beginnings. My father came in the 60s when he was 15, not a word of English, didn't know the English British culture. So imagine that, and I know your father, a similar situation, and lots of people can relate to my story. Parents coming without knowing any English, then not realising where one day one of their children could go on to become a member of European Parliament, local councillor, mayor and House of Lords. It is a huge, absolutely huge dream fulfilled, not just for me but my family and friends. I worked as a taxi driver at one stage in my life to fund my Masters in European Law, which I mentioned earlier, and that's so important in the sense that we shouldn't be shy or scared of putting that hard work, effort in, because if you want to fulfill your dreams, you've got to go to a lot of extremes, and a lot of effort needs to be put in. And it was interesting because at times, as you may know this, having elders that might have done the trade of taxiing, that it's a tough time of the weekends. Sometimes it ends up being a counselling service on Friday and Saturday nights. So I did that, and I was lucky in the sense that after my Masters in European Law, I did a lot of volunteering, did a lot of work around Northern Ireland and looking at cohesion, and I won a national award. So I ended up going into academia. So I worked as an academic, and still to this day, I still teach community leadership or cultural anthropology at the University of Central Lancashire. Wow. And I've been lucky and blessed to be able to develop many courses. But one really important part of my journey was PA Nelson. I first started off working for the university on a Millennium Volunteer project, working with young people, and on a scheme called Young Volunteer Challenge, and met many young kids at Edge End High School at the time. Great memories. It was starting off with the university, seeing these 16-year-olds, working with them, trying to mentor them, develop their themselves and their potential, and also volunteering. Some of them kids were pretty tough and challenging kids to work with, but it's nice to know a lot of them kids have gone on to do some great things.
No, that's good. We've got one of the kids out there.
I know, I'm just looking at him. Yeah. I didn't realise he'd end up being so big, like, his body-wise is like twice the size of me in terms of soul muscle, by the way.
Yeah.
Unlike me.
So I've noticed you mentioned you studied European law. Yeah. Which it's not something that I'd atypically associate with like an Asian or Afghan person studying. And so what is it that you found interesting about it?
I found the concept of people from different countries coming together over a unified way of working. I found that, as I say, in our language, itfaq, many people from different areas coming together, being as one, having a harmonized way of working. I found that really interesting, and I like the concept of pluralism, which celebrates diversity. You can come from different areas, but you can all kind of have some common fundamental platform there. And I thought that was brilliant, and that actually led me to believe that I would one day like to become a member of European Parliament. So at master's level, I was thinking about maybe that's something I'd love to do, serve in the European Parliament, which is a multinational parliament. And so that the idea stemmed from that experience.
And then with you being a member of the House of Lords at the moment, what kind of duties and responsibilities does that entail for you? So like I'm just saying in the context of like if I'm sat in Nelson, some people are sat in Burnley, and they're kind of thinking, so he used to be our local councillor, mayor, MEP, so what do we hassle him about now? What can he do for us?
It's a very important time to hassle me at the moment, because in the House of Lords, what I do is work on legislation. Not only do we scrutinise and check the legislation that comes up from the House of Commons, because of the whole parliamentary bill structure. So we can look at the laws that have been passed in the lower house, House of Commons, MPs, and then look at them. We can make them more tighter, more compact, and make amendments, make it better, and send it back to them and have a bit of a ping pong with them to ensure that before it gets royal assent by Her Majesty the Queen, that bill is workable, functions for the right reason, and is relevant to make a better difference to people's lives and in particular society. And other parts of being a member of the House of Lords is also to initiate legislation. I can start my own bill and get support from the House of Commons in a particular area that we can improve our communities. But on top of that, just to give you context, I'm working on the landmark historic environment bill. So people look at what's happening in the wildfires in Greece and Turkey, and if you look at flooding in our countries and also look at extreme temperatures. The environment bill is about making sure that we reach our targets as a country and other countries are following suit. So I'm humbled and blessed to be, I was promoted on the front bench of the opposition. So I'm the shadow spokesman for DEFRA, which is basically a department which looks at environment, food and rural areas. So I'm working on the environment bill, and that bill is about making sure that we can pass laws to ensure that we can have sustainable life for our children and their children, and we protect our planet. And it might not be as topical or as juicy as other people think, compared to other bills, but for me it's very important. On climate change, looking at the ecological and climate disaster, how we can address them laws, electric cars, transitions, reducing plastic dependency, plastic in our sea, in our oceans. We could end up eating that plastic. And on top of that, we're making sure that we can have a waste recycling. So it has an impact on everyone's lives. It's a hugely important bill. So if you're following interest about the environment, you're passionate about it, please have a look at the environment bill. If you look at my name in that as a search in the member of House of Lords, you'll see I've spoken numerous times on this bill, and I will hopefully continue to speak on it until it becomes statute, which means it becomes law.
Yep. No, so that's actually fascinating, because we unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, but we generally associate our politicians to deal with other areas, and then as soon as you start talking about like environment or kind of green bills or stuff like that, people tend to just kind of switch off. But I think this summer, I think there's been a bit of an eye-opener for a lot of people, because it's been pretty much throughout the world. There was like the flooding in Germany, there was a heat wave in Canada, and it's kind of slowly coming to the forefront now. I think people are kind of realising that.
Well, people's behaviour is causing a lot of problems. It's how we behave ourselves as human beings, how responsible we are, and how we can legislate now to protect the future.
Yeah.
So like, for example, making carbon emissions neutral, being carbon zero, by government says 2050, I think we should be more ambitious than that. So how much we produce pollution in terms of how much we can renew our energy to stop it all, we can make sure we don't add any problems to the ozone layer.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think more and more people are starting to kind of get on board with that. Like if we were having this conversation about 5 years ago, it'd be completely different.
Bash, you're right. People always ask me about foreign policy, Kashmir, Palestine, rightly so. But that's so important to people, and obviously it's difficult to say what's more important for me, my heart, and others. But we should also look at our policies in terms of protecting our future. There was a lovely lecture I attended, delivered by His Royal Highness Prince Charles at Oxford. I went to Oxford, I was invited, and it was about Islam and the environment. If you get the chance, please watch it. It's on YouTube, I'm sure it will be. His Royal Highness Prince Charles, Islam and the environment. And for me, that was a real eye-opener. And it's about how we should be looking after our environment, how responsible we should be. It's just simple things like, I see this all the time, unfortunately, where we just pick the litter up and throw it anyway.
Yep.
And there's a £75 fine, by the way. I introduced that when I was a councillor in Burnley. I'm not sure it's like in Pendle. But we've got to be more responsible. We've got to teach our children that their house, keeping it clean, isn't just about their indoor house. The house is also, the home is also the planet.
Yeah. I like the sound of that. It actually makes people have to be a bit more responsible, doesn't it? Well, it's a common thing, people just kind of flogging litter out windows and stuff, isn't it? It's ridiculous. But another question then, again it goes back to in the House of Lords. Are you one of the, because I'm not familiar with how many other Muslim members there of the House of Lords, but I'm guessing there's a handful, or am I?
I'm the only Muslim background Lord in the opposition Labour Party, so I'm the only one who's actively involved in passing laws or in community engagement, so I'm there. In the governing party, the Conservative Party, there's quite a few, Lord Safraz, there's Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon, who's the Minister for South Asia,
Yep.
Baroness Varsi, Baroness Mubarak, and Lord Zamir Chowdhury, Lord Sheikh. There's quite a few people, and I get on very well with many of them. That's how it should be. There's more in the Lords, in the House of Lords. The atmosphere is more tranquil. It's more peaceful. Whereas you see in the House of Commons, they're always at each other's throats and a bit more passionate. In the Lords, there's a very polite atmosphere.
So how much does your, I guess obviously because yours is a shadow role, but how much does the actual party aspect play a part in there then?
Yeah, so the party's appointing me to the front bench. So I've got I'm also a whip as well. So we do I'm a spokesperson and a whip, and I sit on the front bench, makes contributions and speeches, as you may find in Hansard. So it's a very party level approach, and it's you work as a political party to have a direction in the House of Lords.
Okay.
We very much complement what happens in the House of Commons. So we have shadow ministers in the Commons. We also have shadow ministers in the Lords. So it's a very important part. But I'm really practically involved. It's an important chamber, and realise it's a very important role.
Okay, yeah, because I guess what I'm trying to get at is, obviously, it's, like you said, it's a bit more tranquil.
A lot more tranquil, I'd say.
Okay. Because obviously, when you watch, like, you see them going for it is the House of Commons where they have their...
Yeah.
So when they're in the House of Commons, they're going for it. I mean, if you were to give them, like, rotten fruit, they'll probably start throwing it at you. They just go all out.
Just to give you context on that point, say if Brother Shakoor here, my noble friend, if he said something that said really controversial and something that really, as you said, like that angered me and got me really frustrated. Like as you say, like what the hell is he talking about? But you react differently in Nelson. You know how it is. But in the Lords, you get up and say, my noble friend, Lord Gafoor of Pendle, has made a very interesting point. We say the surname because of my name's Lord Khan, so you don't say Shakoor, you say the surname. So you say he's made a very interesting point. And that is like me saying, I'm not happy with what you said. It's such a polite way of saying, totally disagree with what you said. But other than, go after him and, in a very, I'd say, strong, aggressive manner, you just say he's made a very interesting point. And, that's the level of politeness there.
Yeah, it sounds a bit more civil. So, like,
it is.
Because when you were saying, obviously, like, you got, like, some of the other Muslim members, but to me, I find it a bit weird. They're on the Tory side, but obviously I'm not exactly pro-Tory. But you're still able to kind of like be friendly with them in that way, aren't you?
Yeah. I like the way you said I'm not pro-Tory.
Yeah, I just honestly am.
No, you'll be more friendly with them. For example, the best way to describe it is cross-party. You work across political divides. You see that happening on core issues in the House of Commons, but you see more of that happen, and I'm used to this because in the European Parliament, I did a lot of work on Kashmir. We secured a historic hearing in February 2019, and I couldn't have achieved and got that hearing on the agenda in the Parliament without cross-party support. And in the House of Lords, I see similar patterns, but you've got to really up the game. You need to know what you're talking about. So because in the House of Lords, the level of expertise and the depth of knowledge from some of our lords and baronesses is absolutely, amazing. It's so impressive. So you need to stand up, and when you make a point, you need to ensure you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you get caught out very quickly. Yeah,
I can imagine just thinking you made a really good point, and then you got someone who's probably been dealing with like some legal aspect or specialising in for like 20 years and be like, wrong.
Just to give you an example of that on the Environment Bill, you have some, former judges who have represented the government or against the European Commission on sanctions when the UK has breached the European Union law on particular use of chemicals on in their habitat or their beaches. So them people, when they stand up and talk about the environment, because they've had years and years of expertise doing casework, doing reviews for government level, and actually implementing decisions in jurisdiction. So it's like, when you listen to these people speak, you think it's like going back to university, listening to a professor.
Wow. We're talking about at the highest level there, aren't we, pretty much?
Yeah, we are. We're talking about a very high level people with depth. You've got former defence ministers, former foreign secretaries, former chiefs of huge government organisations, and just recently Sir Simon Stevens, you might have seen him on TV, former chief exec of the NHS. He was always on the daily bulletins, updates on COVID, and he's now, I was there at his introduction, so some really high level people with huge experience and skills there.
All right.
And I'm humbled to be amongst them people and learning
You're doing well, man.
every day from them.
Well, that's good. I think so. We've talked obviously about the call it the technical aspects of your job. So just the kind of nitty-gritty detail and kind of getting people an idea as to how complex it is. It's not just a case of
I'm gonna open this kind of Diet Coke.
Go for it. So we've got an idea as to the detail, but I think one thing I'd like to convey for the benefit of the viewers is, look, there's going to be, because a lot of my viewers are like kind of younger age as well, so not necessarily high school, but they're going to be in college, and they're going to be looking, thinking, okay, Wajid Khan's made it that far, what do I have to do? Not necessarily to make it to where you have, but just to, I don't know, maybe kind of get into some kind of more political role or area. And like, have you got any particular advice for him? Or
Thank you for that, Bash. I think it's really important. I talk to our young viewers out there watching. First of all, it's nothing is impossible. You've just got to have that will, determination, and can-do attitude. Just never stop dreaming. I never stopped dreaming when I studied for my Masters in European Law that one day I'll become an MEP. And I live my dream. I'm thankful. I'm grateful to Allah. I'm thankful every day for the opportunities that I've been given. Thank the Almighty. I think what you've got to do is look at what you want to do in life. You don't all have to be politicians. First of all, I'd openly, through Bash and his podcast, would like to invite you all, if you get the chance to visit the House of Lords, if London, if you're around, please get in touch with me or Bash here, and we'd love to welcome you. The House of Lords is an institution which we want to make it more open and accessible to many people, and particularly young people. So you're very welcome to visit. Secondly is that you don't have to be a politician to make change. Activism shouldn't stop at politics. We should be using our skills through organisations, NGOs, through workplaces, through different campaigns, and you can get involved, and it's important, and it does make a difference. So you think, well, there might be apathy. Well, what does it mean? Oh, these politicians are the same. They say one thing, do another. I think it's not like that. I think you've got to, there's different people who have different values, and you've got to make sure that you speak to them, engage with them, and and educate some politicians at the time. They need to be told. Young people have a lot of skill, energy, and we need to harness that energy towards good campaigns. So never give up. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure isn't falling down. It's actually falling down and not being able to get back up again. And always seek du'as from people. And I want to make a very strong point on dua, because obviously I'm a very spiritual guy, and I think when you do something in life, people will obviously positively give you du'as, and you do not underestimate that power of du'as. And obviously your parents will give you du'as, but also the work you do for other people. Be good role models. Be really good role models. And if you want to represent yourself as a British Asian, British Pakistani, British Muslim, just make sure whatever actions you do, how it's perceived by other people, and you're also an ambassador for representing a particular community. So please, let's be responsible. There's unfortunately a lot of negative stuff about young people at the moment, where we just use our fast cars and we have no regard of the laws, and unfortunately that's a stereotype that we are seeing, and we've got to make sure we challenge them stereotypes. And me as a responsible politician, I want to hear more from young people and see how we want to shape your future. What kind of country do you want to see? What kind of town do you want to see? Pendle, Nelson, how do you want to see things change? And please be part of that conversation, whether that's through politics, standing as a local councillor like I did. I got into politics to get rid of the BNP, didn't like them representing me. You might think I want to get into politics because you want to change the outlook of your town. So there's many ways of getting involved. You can stand with a political party, you can stand independent, like we see people here, but have them conversations with politicians, tell them how it is, tell them how you feel, but do it in a respectful manner. I'm sure they'll listen.
Yeah, I think the respectful bit is quite important, because I think this past 10, 15 years, at the local level, it just kind of devolves, doesn't it? Because without obviously getting into the nitty gritty of it and trying to like name names or anything, but it's not great, and it does put people off. But I think you were very blessed to be able to kind of like grind through and kind of just get past that.
Yeah, Bash, you touched on really important points, and I think if you look at when it comes to election time, in particular, you see social media posts. But I think it's important that people have an expression of opinion. The voices should be heard. But what I do object to is when you get very personal. We get really personal. We mudsling. We malign people's characters, and we have all kinds of police at times being called, and we've got to get past that. I'm blessed to be kind of work always constructively and respectfully with opposition. Whether you win or lose, that's in your, as I said, kismet. And if you don't win, another person wins, I wish them the good luck to serve their community, and that's really important. You're not a Labour councillor. You're not a Conservative councillor. You're a councillor for everybody, because you represent that ward, and that means you shouldn't always only support and help people that voted you. You should help everybody that approaches you. That's what the Nolan principles are about, being working for the public interest. Nelson politics, I'd say, and I think we're probably a bit more plighted in Burnley. I'm not don't want to cause a new argument here between Burnley and Pendle politics. No. But I think there's a lot of love to be rekindled amongst politicians.
Yeah. And then
I think you should take a role in that.
I don't know.
Bring them on your podcast and give them a bit of butter for each, and order some chicken burgers and sit together and sort the issues out.
If it wasn't for COVID, I was at one point, obviously I'm not going to reveal too much, but there is going to be something happening closer to the next round of elections. So whenever it says like May or whatever, I will definitely be doing something. So, and I'm just saying for the record now, I won't turn it into a mudslinger, and I'm obviously not pro-Tory.
You're a cool, calm, collective guy. I'm sure you can spread the peaceful ways of working amongst some of these our brothers and sisters who are councillors, because we've got sisters who are councillors in Bendel as well, which is a great achievement to see more women in politics.
To be fair, I think we could just put them at a round table, give them baseball bats and say go sit.
No, I'm not advocating that at all. Bash, I hope you advocate a game of baseball. Are you trying to say like some kind of team bonding, play baseball?
I should try that. Not top. But the only other thing I suppose is just in terms of rounding off our conversation today.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of really valuable information from you, but I guess what I'd like to give you the platform to do is there basically anything else you want to say?
Yeah.
Is there any information you want to share, any upcoming news, anything? This is just use the platform flat out.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, first of all, if there's any way you'd like to invite me to one of your for me to listen to, as I call it, a listening event for me to listen to any issues or ideas or anything that concerns you, comments you want to talk about, what's wrong with communities or society generally, what laws that we should be passing. I'm happy to attend through Bash here and through other community champions. I'm happy to come and listen to you. I say listen because obviously that's one of the things, first and most important thing about representing people. We should not enforce our views on people. We should listen to what people want and then go back and prepare laws or initiatives or policies that can make people's lives better. I want to also say to a lot of young people here, it's been a tough 18 months for people in COVID. I know it's been challenging and things are starting to get better. Please, take care of yourselves and look after yourselves and others and loved ones. Let's still be cautious, but also the next few months, 6 months, we need to support everybody. We'll come around each other, work together and provide a future for yourselves. And don't be scared of doing things differently. The economy is changing. Traditional jobs may not be there anymore. There's new jobs coming up, green tech jobs, artificial intelligence, robotics. Let's try to make sure our young people, so parents listening, Don't go for the typical doctor, lawyer, and all these kind of. And I said that in a bit of a tone there, because the way my dad said to me, and this is what you got to be, but we got to move past that. You've got to really kind of be flexible to change. And if you want to just a dialogue, if you think we should have more community dialogues, I'm happy to be involved. If you think Pendle politicians or our councillors need a bit of love, between themselves, or need to have more conversations, I'm happy to play a role. If people would like that to happen, I just want to see the people of Nelson, wider Pendle, Burnley, UK. I want to see that we as communities can play a fantastic part, as we have done historically. Over the years, our parents have played a huge role in developing the United Kingdom through rebuilding its infrastructure, to contributing in different parts of society, whether that's politics, whether that's business, whether that's journalism. There's so much we can do. The world's your oyster. You can make a huge difference, and no matter who you are, where you're from, you are important, and we value you, and you can make Pendle, Nelson better, but also you can make a big difference to you and your family. And let's get you involved. Let's get your potential fulfilled.
Awesome. That was actually really good. I think the only thing I'll probably just add as a quick question, accessibility for you, what's the best way to contact you?
It's very simple. I'm on Google. I'm on Google, as in just basically my email is there. It's basically khanw@parliament.uk. Or if you're in Nelson, grab Bash. And Shakoor is everywhere on social media. Just give us if you can't get hold of me for some reason, just drop a Shakoor line, and I always follow Shakoor's instructions. He's a wise man. I always listen to him. So honestly, get in touch with Bash, Shaks, just give us a shout. I'm more than happy to spend time with you. And even if it's, some of you thinking, like some really big issues that I really want to talk about, it's recess, so Parliament's not sitting. I'm around. I'm going to take the family a few days away for holiday, which I think is important to make sure my marriage survives. That's important. But yeah, apart from that, I'm around. So give us a shout. Please do get in touch, and I'm happy to sit down in an informal, environment like we're sitting here. And I'm sitting like it's in my own house, and we're chilling out and talking important issues. We've had a good debate about a variety of issues before we started this podcast. So yeah, I'm happy to sit down and talk.
Perfect. So just to round things off, I just want to say thank you again to Wajid Khan. It's really appreciated that you did take your time out to come here. I want to apologize to the viewers because I haven't been producing content as frequently. It was more just to kind of protect myself, because I thought it'd be better just to wait for lockdown to be officially over. Because before there was just a little bit of a grey area where if I was filming indoors, would I need to be masked, unmasked, and just the regulations around filming and stuff. So I prefer to do things by the book. So inshallah, in the next coming weeks, I'll have quite a few more guests, and we'll just get the show back on the road again. So, and I can only do it with obviously the support of my guests and the supporting staff, my younger brother and Mr. Shakoor Ghafoor, who's been very helpful. He's actually played a hand in about 3 episodes already that are down to him, and I think Khayyam's also responsible for about 3 episodes as well. So thanks Khayyam Raja as well. So yeah, over and out, and stay tuned for the next episode.